Do you remember Curveball?
Yeah.
So this is the media complicity with this. So I spoke to an FBI agent who told me, he said, when we want to leak information, we push it out to the Washington Post, or we push it out to intelligence agencies want to push and leak stories or plant stories. We go to the New York Times, we go to the Washington Post, et cetera. And of course, it used to be, back in the day, they were embedded inside of newsrooms, right? So you had them inside the CBS newsroom and all of that. And now they just give them the information and then they run with it. They don't question it at all. So Curveball, this has always been fascinating to me. It's, Colin Powell gets up there and holds up this vial, and it's been kept from him that this guy Curveball was a defector from Iraq. He defects to Germany and starts talking all kinds of shit about Saddam Hussein. He's got mobile biological weapons labs.
Yes, the mobile biolabs. I remember that.
He's got all these things, and the German authorities are like, this guy Curveball has got a screw loose. So do you remember there was a CIA European chief? I think his name was like Tyler Drumheller or something like that. He knew that this guy Screwball had a screw loose. And he warned his counterparts in D.C., don't pay attention to what this guy Curveball is saying. This information is not accurate. He's got an agenda. This smells bad. Don't base anything that you're giving Colin Powell or anybody else any reason to go into Iraq. Don't base it on Curveball. DC ignores it on purpose, hides it from Colin Powell. So then Colin Powell goes before the American people with a little vial of fake anthrax and says mobile biological weapons labs. And all of the networks run with it. There were people in the media who were aware that Curveball had a screw loose, but it didn't matter because the narrative had been set. We ignored it. So the DC offices ignored it on purpose and cordoned it off. I think Colin Powell's speechwriter at the time and head of his office said we were completely deceived because they withheld this information. And Colin Powell spent weeks at CIA headquarters going over all of the documents. Not one of them did he find credible. The one that he ended up using, one of maybe two, was the mobile biological weapons labs that all came from Curveball, which was all made up. And then, of course, in 2011, Curveball comes out and says, I made the whole thing up because I hated Saddam and I just wanted a regime change. And I knew if I planted this seed, it would lead to regime change. Shouldn't we have a stronger predicate to go into these countries? Yeah. And shouldn't the incurious media be asking questions of these people? But they go along with it because it's part of, I don't know who's feeding them these sort of deep state talking points that they need to carry on with this. But to me, they're an extension of the Pentagon. When you have Fox News has an office in the Pentagon.
And who works in that office?
I think Jennifer Griffin.
Oh, Jennifer Griffin, yeah.
So you have these people that are literally inside the buildings.
Jennifer Griffin is, even by the standards of Pentagon employees, I guess she's not technically an employee of the Pentagon. She's a shill, obviously, for the deepest of the deep states, but she's like a parody. She's like a parody. It's like the whole thing. She had this amazing tweet yesterday. I guess the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, our former colleague, said something about, referring to the pilots of the B-2s who dropped the bunker busters in Iran, said something like, good work, boys. I think that's something like that. And Jennifer Griffin immediately comes back and goes, breaking news. Actually, one of the pilots was a woman. And so all of a sudden Fox News is celebrating the diversity of the bomber pilots. It's there was this meme several years ago, making fun of the left. And it was someone getting bombed in some, benighted country and by the U.S. or by NATO. And it was but at least the pilots are gay. And all of a sudden Fox is no, actually, we should celebrate now because one of the B-2 pilots was a woman. So Roe v. Wade was overturned 3 years ago and people celebrated, but the battle over abortion is not over. In fact, did you know that abortions are at a 10-year high? In a lot of ways, it's the saddest thing that happens in this country. The birth rate falls and the killing of children accelerates. It's awful. Preborn is fighting this trend. They're expanding their life-affirming care in the darkest corners of the country to help women and save babies. Now, the abortion mafia don't want women to think about what they are carrying. They want them to think that ending the pregnancy will solve all of their problems, but that is not true. 11% of women who take the abortion pill, for example, go on to suffer serious health consequences. And that does not include the emotional and moral consequences. It's bad. It's ending a life. So when you give to Preborn, you are not just saving a baby, you're saving a mother too. Preborn has already rescued over 350,000 babies. There are still many, many more who need help. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby to support their cause. That's pound 250 baby. Go to preborn.com/Tucker, preborn.com/Tucker, because children are the greatest gift, period.
You know what's amazing if you look at, well, first of all, her coverage of this in the immediate aftermath of the bombing was, this is spectacular. You know, Sean, this is spectacular. This was
really?
Yeah, this was an amazing operation. There was not one leak. No one.
I love the explosions.
No,
Jennifer Griffin's fought in a lot of wars. She's personally courageous. She put a lot on the line.
So many of these people are. Even like that Jim Sciutto from CNN, you know.
It's unbelievable.
He was embedded in Ukraine, and he's like, we know this massive offensive is coming. Here's this and this, being fed information directly from the deep state, these guys. So they're all an extension, CNN and all these other, they're all an extension of the intelligence community, being fed this information and given these sources. So they can never say a negative thing about them, because then you cut off your sources. Jennifer Griffin, as this was all unfolding, and it was clear to me that there are a lot of questions about what was actually in those nuclear sites, because a week earlier, Israel had struck 2 of them. So do you think that Iran just kind of hung out and just like got a broom out and cleaned some stuff up and just put like the pictures back up on the wall? No, they were empty. And Fordo, by all accounts, was empty as well. So what exactly did we hit? And then this information was coming out almost in real time, but I was watching the network news coverage, and there was no sort of walking it back. There was no assessment.
Telling the truth.
Right.
Just lying.
Just continuing with this. This is the greatest moment in American history.
The crazy thing is Jen Griffin is a liar, but also very liberal. Wow, true Trump hater. To the point where I complained about her, and I really tried not to complain about other people at Fox when I worked there, because I don't like that, office politics stuff. But she was discrediting the channel. She was such a Trump hater. And it was like emotional, like her internal memos, from the Pentagon, sources are telling us, were like screeds. It was like, oh, I'll just read Political Playbook if that's what, or whatever. I'll read Mother Jones. And I said to an executive at Fox, like, what are we doing with this Jennifer Griffin person? She's an idiot. She doesn't tell the truth. She misleads our viewers. And she's like a screaming liberal who hates Trump, who our viewers love. So what are we getting out of this? And it was like, whatever. It's like, boy, you could not touch Jennifer Griffin. I don't know what that's about. But,
well, if you have an office in the Pentagon, maybe that's what that's about.
Maybe.
I mean, or I don't know. That's that whole other world that I'm not a part of, but I can't tolerate it. And it's why so many people are so fed up with cable news. But you have to understand, well, you understand it. Maybe your viewers don't fully understand or appreciate how profitable it is for these networks during war. So if you look at the numbers from like Q1 of 2002, before we went into Iraq, the numbers for revenue for Fox was about 70 or so. Or I forget the numbers exactly. But anyway, in that following quarter, when the war started in March, the numbers went up 150%.
No way.
150%. So war is incredibly profitable. I mean, CNN was built on it. Right. I mean, CNN's...
Of course, it literally started or was brought to public attention during the war that your brother served in 1990.
So they made, billions off of war. So Countdown to Iraq, Showdown with Saddam, like all of the sort of build up to war, people are going to tune in. They're going to make money from ad revenue. When in an era where ad revenue is plummeting, the young people don't watch cable news. They get their news from like TikTok and X and little sound bites here and YouTube and places like that. They're not buying a cable subscription. Do you know any young people that have a cable? I bet if you asked any of your staff, any of you guys own a cable subscription so you can watch CNN or Fox News? No. So that audience is, like getting much, much older. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to like the cable news landscape in the next few years.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.